PHP website or a PHP application. Want to distribute it or sell it? However, there is a big problem. A desktop application in PHP, HTML, and JS has its source code accessible to everyone. Nothing then prevents anyone from copying, modifying, or even redistributing your application. In this tutorial, we'll show you how to secure your PHP app for distribution and how to add licensing features. Every step is explained. Just start by downloading and installing the two following software apps. Compiling your PHP and HTML code to exe with ExeOutput for PHP will secure your app's code. All your PHP code as well as the files composing your app are really protected against simple copy, assets, JS, HTML, CSS. In this tutorial, we'll tell you how to turn your PHP app into an executable with ExeOutput for PHP. Then, we'll add licensing features thanks to Obsidium, a great software protection tool. We'll set up hardware locking keys so that customers can't share their licenses with others. And this ensures that you will earn more money, since piracy is highly reduced. We'll start to build our app's file executable from our PHP source code. Here our app's source folder is in a folder named source. It's an app based on CodeIgniter. You can recognize the structure if you are familiar with it. Here are the two tools we need, ExeOutput for PHP and Obsidium. Links are available in the description below. Let's start ExeOutput for PHP to build our exe file. We begin by starting a new application. Choose the app's source folder or enter its path into the appropriate field. Choose the app's index page, here index.php. Here we can change the UI. We'll stick with the classic browser mode. Finally, define where the software will create the exe file. Create a new subfolder named Output for instance. Give a title to your new app and validate with Finish. First, save the project. Then, go to File Manager. We'll exclude some unnecessary files. Some applications require writing files to specific folders, so we must keep these folders outside the exe. For CodeIgniter, it's application/cache and application/logs, we configure them to be considered as external files by the exe app. Let's compile the project and build the exe. Remember that it will be output in that location. Click Compile in the toolbar. We can now try to run it. As you can see, a basic CodeIgniter app works. Our app is now ready. We can start protecting it. Navigate to the source folder and rename the original index.php to index2.php. Then, navigate to the examples folder of Obsidium to get the readme.txt and sample files. This README contains instructions that will be useful. Keep it open for later. These three PHP files have to be copied to the source folder of your app. Let's copy them. Alternatively, you can also use the files of the ExeOutput Obsidium sample package available on the ExeOutputs page, see description below. They just provide a more modern look for the app. Now, back to ExeOutput. We'll refresh the files of the app. As you can see, the files we copied earlier were automatically added to the app. Now we can activate the option that tells ExeOutput that our exe file will be protected with Obsidium. Yes, let's ExeOutput install the missing files. Tick Obsidium API support. Validate with install. Close the window. That option being active, we can compile the app again to get an exe file ready for Obsidium. The exe file has now a temporary companion library file named obsidium.dll. Just leave it there. Start Obsidium and begin a new project. You can save your Obsidium project in the same folder as the ExeOutput's project file. Choose Protect. We'll indicate the source exe file built with ExeOutput. First, Obsidium requires the output directory. Select our output folder. Now, click Add and choose the exe file. Define a new name for the protected exe file. Let's configure the protection settings. For this tutorial, we don't need compression. To configure advanced settings, we'll use the instructions in the README that we opened earlier. Just turn on the options as explained in the README. They are specific to exe files built with ExeOutput for PHP. Click the Licensing tab and choose where the license should be stored. For this demo, we'll use a license file in the same folder as the exe. To prevent your customers from sharing their licenses, use of hardware locking is strongly recommended. We'll do it in this tutorial. Finally, in keys, we have to define the license key format we want. For this tutorial, we have to use long license keys. So choose Internal System. Then a good key size. And click Generate Encryption Keys. We are now done with the parameters of the Obsidium protection. Now let's start protecting the exe file and see what it does for us. If you remember, we replaced our index.php page with the one you see now. We can call this page an egg screen where customers are asked to enter an activation code to access the application. Since we have chosen a hardware-locked licensing model, we have to show our customers their system ID. That's why a field named System ID appears. Customers will have to provide us their system ID for us to generate them an activation code. Right now, the only concern is that this field is empty at the moment. We still need to configure ExeOutput. So return to ExeOutput. Go to Application Settings then Scripting. First of all, we're going to enter some code in the user main script that will allow us to display a message box to customers. This code can be found in the usermain.txt file provided with the ExeOutput Obsidium example package. Copy and paste this code into the script editor. Now we need to import a script to invoke the Obsidium APIs from PHP. This script is ready. We will import the Obsidium API.xml file in this runtime directory of ExeOutput. Just leave default values and click OK. Everything is ready for a new compilation of our application. First compile the exe file with ExeOutput, and then protect it with Obsidium. Well, our application is working as expected. The system ID now appears because PHP can retrieve it from the Obsidium APIs thanks to the script we imported. Now, we just have to test the application with an activation code. And then we'll take a closer look at the background operation. We'll test the licensing system. To do so, we will copy the system ID and paste it into the Obsidium key generator. Enter anything you want. It could be a username, for instance. Here is the key to be entered into the app. Let's copy it and paste it into the activation code field. OK. Our activation code is accepted. The real application now opens as the access is granted. Go to the output folder with the exe file. As you can see, there is a new license.key file. This is expected because we had configured Obsidium to place it here for testing. First test, let's check that the now activated application opens directly without asking for an activation code again. It's working. Now, second test, let's try to rename the license.key file and check that the application returns to not activated mode. OK. As expected, the application can't find the license and therefore asks for another one. If you restore the license.key file, it will work again. Doing this lets you try that your licensing system works. But in production, it's recommended to have the license.key somewhere else, in registry, in user data folder. Let's take a closer look behind the scenes. We've replaced our initial index.php file with this one. A first require allows you to import functions related to the Obsidium registration APIs. Then you see that we test if the application is in activated mode thanks to OBS is licensed. If it's the case, we redirect to the real index page of our app, that was renamed index2.php earlier. Here the form is used to retrieve the activation code and it sends the answer to a PHP script called do_activation.php. Let's study the do_activation.php that receives the form data. As before, we import the Obsidium APIs into PHP and check that there is an activation code that has been entered in the form field named a code. We then test the provided activation code using obsetLicense. If it is accepted by Obsidium, we instruct the latter to store it in the license.key file thanks to obstoreLicense. Then, we show the message box to confirm the correct activation. The code to show that message box was imported into ExeOutput some steps ago. If the activation fails, we display an error message. Finally, we come back to the initial index.php page no matter what happens. A quick look at the activation.php file. There is no need to modify it. It is used to import the different Obsidium APIs that you can invoke in PHP. Each of them is described in the documentation of the protection software. To distribute your app, it's easy as zipping files. In fact, ExeOutput builds portable apps that do not require any specific installation. Zip the data subfolder, if any, and the exe file protected with Obsidium. You can ignore other files. It's the end of this tutorial. Our app is ready for distribution and, as expected, it can only be opened if we provide a valid activation code.